All right, everyone, buckle up. We're about to take a deep dive into Israeli food culture.
Ooh, sounds delicious. I'm ready.
And to make things even more interesting, we're going to do it through the lens of a beloved pastry, the burekas.
The Barekas. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. I'm intrigued. How does a pastry unlock a whole culture?
Well, that's the beauty of food, right? It's never just about what's on your plate. It's a gateway to history, tradition, stories. And in this deep dive, our guide is the incredible writer Liat Portal.
I've heard her name. She's got a way with words.
She really does. In her work, The Liat Show, My Journey to Infinity, a story unfolding across timelines, she poses this really thought-provoking question. She asks, how did Jewish communities, even after being scattered by the Babylonian exile, how did they manage to keep their culinary traditions alive?
That's a great question. We're talking about centuries of displacement. It makes you wonder, how did food help them maintain that sense of identity?
Exactly. And, one of the things Liat points to is the concept of kashrut, keeping kosher. It's more than just a set of rules. It's this thread that connects Jewish communities across time and geography.
I see, it's like a culinary anchor.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how wherever Jewish communities found themselves, they adapted local foods to fit those traditions.
Adapting, innovating. I love that.
Right. Now, let's bring the barekas back into the picture. This pastry has some serious history behind it. We're talking ancient origins, variations popping up all over the Mediterranean, burek in Turkey, bouzouki in Greece.
It's amazing how food travels, isn't it? Like you can almost trace those historical connections through the evolution of a dish.
Okay, so picture this. It's the 1980s in Israel. The economy is booming, and guess what else is on the rise? Frozen food.
Ah, the era of convenience. I'm curious, what was happening in society that time that led to this shift towards ready-made meals?
Well, for Liette and her family, it was a game changer. Both of her parents worked, so having those quick and easy meal options made a huge difference. And get this, her friends were envious of her elaborate dinners, which were mostly thanks to the magic of frozen burekas.
That's hilarious. It really shows how our perception of what constitutes a fancy meal is often shaped by social trends, doesn't it?
Totally. But hold on, before you rush out to buy a freezer full of burekas, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the trans fats in the pastry.
Right. Those commercially prepared foods often came with a hidden cost.
Liat herself talks about struggling with this in her 20s. Burekas were a staple in her diet, and let's just say her triglyceride levels weren't too happy about it.
It's a good reminder that moderation is key, especially with those foods that we tend to associate with comfort and nostalgia.
And sometimes a change of scenery can make all the difference. Because Liat eventually moved from Israel, Teo, of all places, San Francisco.
San Francisco, the land of sourdough and, well, pretty much anything but burekas.
Exactly. And let's just say, San Francisco isn't exactly a burekas haven. So for Liat, that move ended up being a kind of accidental health intervention.
Out of sight, out of mind's right.
Exactly. Now, this isn't to say she swore off burekas forever, but it became more of a mindful treat, not an everyday staple.
I think that resonates with a lot of people. We all have those foods, those flavors that we connect with on a deeper level. It's not about cutting them out entirely. It's about finding that balance.
Right. It's about enjoying those foods, but in a way that feels good for both our bodies and our memories.
Exactly. And, it's fascinating to me how we started with this simple pastry, and look where we are. We've traveled through centuries, explored cultural adaptations, even touched on the evolution of convenience food.
All thanks to the burekas. Who knew it held so many stories within its flaky layers?
It's a good reminder that food is never just food. It's a lens through which we can view history, culture, even our own personal journeys. Like Liat's story, for instance.
Exactly. And speaking of Liat, for anyone who's as captivated by her storytelling as we are, you absolutely need to check out her work.
Yes, her Substack, The Liat Show. My Journey to Infinity, a story unfolding across timelines. It's a treasure trove of these fascinating narratives.
It really is. She weaves together those personal anecdotes with broader cultural and historical insights, and it's just so engaging you won't be able to put it down.
It really makes you want to grab a fork and dive into your own culinary heritage. What about you? What are some of the foods from your own background that have those hidden stories, those connections to the past?
Ooh, that's a great question. Honestly, this whole conversation has me thinking about that. It's like, what's on my plate that holds these echoes of history, of adaptation? I think that's something we all should be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. Take a bite, savor the flavors, and see where the journey leads. You might be surprised at the stories you uncover.
Wow. It's amazing how we can go from a simple burekas to a journey through time and culture.
Isn't it fascinating? Food really does have this incredible power to connect us to the past.
It's like taking a bite and uncovering these layers of history, tradition, even personal memories. It makes you appreciate every ingredient, every flavor in a whole new way.
It really does. And speaking of uncovering those hidden stories, have you ever thought about the stories behind your own favorite foods?
Absolutely. This whole conversation has me thinking about that. It's like, what's on my plate that tells a story? What are those dishes that have been passed down through generations in my family? What are the flavors that evoke those memories of childhood, of home?
It's a journey worth taking, that's for sure. And, for listeners who are as intrigued by this idea of exploring food and culture as we are, Liette Portal's Substack is a treasure trove of these kinds of stories.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this deep dive, then you'll love her work. She's got this incredible ability to weave together those personal anecdotes, historical insights, and really make you think about the world in a whole new way.
And, on that note of exploring new perspectives, it's always a great time to remind our listeners about the importance of supporting independent creators like Liette and, well, like us too.
Absolutely. Whether it's subscribing to their Substack, leaving a rating for their podcast, or simply sharing their work with a friend, every little bit helps these creators keep doing what they do best, sharing their unique voices and perspectives with the world.
Exactly. Because in a world that often feels saturated with information, it's those independent voices that can offer fresh insights and challenge the way we see things.
Couldn't agree more. So to wrap things up, we encourage everyone listening to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep those taste buds tingling with curiosity. Because you never know what fascinating stories you might uncover, all through the simple act of taking a bite.
Well said. Here's to more delicious discoveries.
Cheers to that. And until next time, happy listening.